English, return. We saw either returning to the place from which you came or to the situation you were in. Your certain situation. We saw the skin of Naaman when it became a leper, and his skin returned to the original situation, status it was in before. And then we said accordingly, we said some theoretical, hypothetical conclusions based on that tshuva is only after sin. Someone who sinned, did the wrong thing, and goes back to what he was before, to return. It's also only a man has free will. You had a choice of good and evil. You chose evil. You fell. You have to go back and return to where you were before. Also, it only applies to man who has free will to choose between good and evil. We also said maybe then it's only a religious person who was religious, chose the wrong thing for a moment, momentarily fall, and then tshuva, and then sin, and he returns to what he was before. But if he's never religious, he can become religious, becomes more holy, more elevated. In other words, we said, but it's not returning. It's not the usage of this term, shouldn't be applied to him. It's only someone who was returning to where he was. He was never there. So we said there's other words, litalot, to rise, to elevate, to become more perfected, more lofty and holy. But he's not returning. These are all the theoretical conclusions we said. Also, we saw if there's different categories of the mitzvot, of obligatory commandments, like tefillin, eating a kazait of matzah on the night of Pesach. There's optional commandments. We saw in the parsha last week of building, if you build a house, if you want to go up on the roof, you have to build the ma'akeh, the parapet, the fence on the roof. It's an optional mitzvah. If you do so, it's a mitzvah. There's no obligation. And then we said there's a third category of, so to speak, negative commandments. If someone steals something, there's an obligation. There's a commandment that you fulfill by returning the stolen object. But there's no commandment to steal and to return, to fulfill that commandment. The opposite. It's even the Torah says it's forbidden to steal even in order to return it. So that's a mitzvah. We said you don't want to come up to never to meet. You hope you never see that mitzvah. You never have to. You don't steal and never fulfill the commandment of returning. So we said according to that, tshuva should be in the third category. Of if you sin, there's a way to fix it, return back to where you were. But hopefully you never sin, theoretically. We said there's no other verse in Kohelet, there's no person that never sinned. But theoretically, it's a commandment that the minimum, you should come up and meet and to fulfill that commandment. You should hopefully not sin, like don't steal and don't return, don't do sin and don't have to do tshuva. And we said the last other, so to speak, conclusion based on the understanding of tshuva being returning, it's a one-time act, it's a momentary thing. If perhaps you should fall from the road, the mainstream, then you go back, do tshuva. But it's not the mainstream of life. It's not something that you should always do and always be part of. It's something, like I said, if you fall, go back to the main road of life. And tshuva is, let's say, outside of the main road of life. But then we saw, if we have the sheets, we saw the first 4 paragraphs on the right, which are not really paragraphs. We said our citations, a few lines from the work of Ortho Tshuva of Rav Kook, which don't seem to fit those definitions. The first thing we saw was the tshuva hovers and shines every moment. It's a constant thing, not a one-time act. It's a constant experience. Not like we said it's a negative thing that once in a time, lifetime, hopefully few as possible. Here, no, it's a constant thing. The second source we saw, again, that it's constantly in the heart, in the depths of all of existence. Not only in man, not only a person that's free will, not only a religious person. It's beyond man. It's something in the reality, in existence. In the depth of existence is force of tshuva, which you described that later, that it's a constant force in nature, which is described in the last 2 sources on the right that we saw, that the world is not something that stands in one place. It's not static. The world is dynamic. It's always going and developing and rising towards its ultimate perfection, both physical and spiritual. And the 4th source we saw, right after that in the chapter 5 in Ortho Tshuva, right, this is the pocket edition, that the spirit of Tshuva hovers in the world. Again, it's not just in man, it's a force in nature, and that is what pushes the world towards its ultimate development. In other words, the 2 things together, that the world is developing, is growing, a spiritual development, holy, moral development of the world towards perfection. And Tshuva is that force in reality that God created in this world, the spiritual gravitational force, the spiritual push that is pushing the world towards perfection. But again, that has to be elaborated and explained. We'll talk a little bit more. But that already, it still has the question remains of how is that tshuva? So the world is rising, developing, advancing, evolving towards perfection, physical and spiritual. The world is going, it's not static. It's going, and the force that is pushing that world towards perfection, going up against entropy that goes to the force of nature that counteracts that force, that goes towards perfection. But that's not tshuva, it's not returning. It's from here going up and up and up, which is great, fantastic, which is amazing. But how is that tshuva? The word is called tshuva, we said. So that we have yet to explain, but we'll see another few sources on the left. I think that's what we got up to. The source on the top of the left column, this is an end of a long paragraph in chapter 14. And he summarizes, V'hi tshuva, this, what I described above, is the tshuva gemura shetzadikim gemura. You have it? You read the Hebrew? So on the upper left, you see, you have the sheet. V'hi tshuva gemura shetzadikim gemurim ba'im al yada liot olim b'malot ba'lei tshuva. And this type of tshuva that I described above, maybe simply explained, that there's a tshuva that goes from negative to positive. Again, you sinned, and now you did the good, and then you remorse, and you fixed your ways. But there's also from a positive to a bigger positive. That's also tshuva. But again, it doesn't fit the category of tshuva, or our theoretical explanation of tshuva was returning. It's okay, it's getting better. You're going from positive to even a bigger positive. So tshuva is this amazing force that pushes everything towards betterness. And this is, he says, what makes even tzaddikim gemurim that don't sin. It's not only after sin. Tzaddikim that don't sin. Theoretically, if there's someone that doesn't sin, he also can become a balei tshuva, bal tshuva. He can also become an owner of tshuva. He can do tshuva. He didn't sin. We said it's only after sin. So he goes again from bigger, positive, he's a tzaddik, he's righteous, and he gets even more righteous, higher and higher. It's endless levels of proximity to the divine, to holiness, to morality, of super goodness, and a being of divine content in this world. But that's not, again, seemingly that's not tshuva. But as we'll see, Rav Kook is exposing to us a whole different understanding and level of dimension of this concept of tshuva. We'll see, includes the usual explanation, but it goes way beyond it. We mentioned how Rav Kook is bringing back these concepts that during the exile became limited to the individual, to the private domain. To be a good Jew, and you're the Beit Knesset, and you're keeping kosher in your kitchen. And now we're coming back to the full size of Am Yisrael, to be a kingdom of priests and holy nation that will change reality, change mankind, uplift, to be this God-sent vehicle that will literally revolutionize all of mankind and the culture and the world. But again, how is that tshuva? So we'll see how Rav Kook expands all these concepts to their full grandeur of becoming universal concepts, of raising it to even higher heights than we're used to in the exile, certainly, and now that we're returning to as a nation, we have to understand the content of our national, what does it mean? Now we're a nation, the child is growing up, you're an adult. What does that mean to be an adult? What is that content of that? What's the grandeur of that? What's the beauty of that? The nation returning to be alive again in its land, sovereign. And there are those that don't understand. Judaism is just me and the private thing. There's no need for a nation. That's for the non-Jews. We don't have politics. We have religion. And now again, so we have to have the Torah guidance that enables us to understand and to guide and direct this reborn nation. Am Nolad, isn't it? There's a reborn nation coming back to our full grandeur to know what is the meaning, the goal, the purpose. Because if not, we'll see there's very strong ramifications of the lack of understanding. If the child doesn't know what it means, what his purpose is, his search for identity, as the adolescent is searching, and there's no one there to show him what has been meant, the great meaning of our return to the land as a nation. Especially when the whole world is telling him that you shouldn't come back. You're trying to hold us up from coming back. All the challenges that will be. To stand up to those challenges, we have to know clearly what we are, what we're coming back to. What is the meaning of our life? Otherwise, why be here? Why suffer? Why go all these difficulties and challenges and enemies? So if you understand, and we have to understand, so God sent also the giants of Torah each period, and especially in this period of the redemption, to know and reveal the inner content, the value, the significance of this reborn national essence nation. So again, in the concept of tshuva here, we'll see how he takes it out of the usual, the simple level, let's call it, which is also true, but to much more. But the question is how, again, so how does he do so? How is this tshuva? this higher level, this raising of the world. So the next section already starts giving maybe an answer, the beginning of an answer. If you see the second source on the left from chapter 4 in Orot HaTshuva, Al Yedei HaTshuva Akol Shav Lelokut. Through Tshuva, everything returns to divinity, to the divine. By this force of tshuva, we said it's this universal, cosmic force in reality that is hovering in all the worlds. There's many worlds. The world is more than what meets the eye. Like we say in Ashrei, right? In Tehillim 145, Malchutcha, Malchut, Kol Olamim. Your kingdom is sovereign over the world. In the Kabbalah, the deeper wisdom, it talks about these 4 levels, and even those levels, 4 worlds, and there's levels and levels beyond them, within those levels. The Havdi, like also Plato, right? Plato. There's what we see in the world here is just shadow of the real world, the world of ideas. The world is other levels of reality that his famous allegory of the cave. Right? There's people locked in the cave, tied to their chairs, a fire behind them, and they see in front of them the shadow. All they see is a shadow, 2-dimensional on the wall, and that's reality. They're sure that that's all there is to reality, 2-dimensional existence. Someone comes to tell them, no, there's the 3rd dimension, there's something more, another dimension. What is some mystic? You're some, what do you know, another dimension? This is, you see what there is. Until he takes them out and shows them, wow, there really is. So too, we think there's the 3 dimensions, that's all there is. What do the eyes and the physical senses pick up? That's all there is. What the 5 senses pick up. Rav Kook writes that in the future there will be revealed, exposed even, I think it's hundreds or thousands of senses. That man will expand, even the senses will be enhanced. Not only enhanced, but there'll be more senses. And then you see the world as it really is. You don't even see the world there. Like a blind person, he doesn't see some part of it, but the world exists. There's colors and things. He doesn't see that. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Our eyes, our 5 senses pick up a certain tiny part of the electromagnetic spectrum, and whatever we see is a tiny part of the physical world. But other levels of spirituality, of goodness, of divine creations, and levels and levels. We had once a student from astrophysics, and there's 16 universes, 16, I don't know, something like that. But our view is very limited, but there's more, there's much more. And this force of tshuva is not just in man that sins and go fix your ways and go back to where you were now, stop being a sinner. But it's this force, this cosmic, in all of the worlds, all the levels, the spiritual levels, all of creation, that we said before, that brings the world towards its perfection. And how is it returning? So here it says that it's all returning to God, godliness. The question is, how is that returning? But so again, the next paragraph may be in chapter 11. Again, not for the chapter, these 2 lines. Ma'alach kol hayesh, all of existence is this development, this process that is built on the foundation of tshuva. All of the world exists on tshuva. Like the rabbis say, that tshuva preceded the world, preceded creation. How? And now maybe we can understand through these few words. Havayot mitgalot betor yerida me'elokiyut la'olamiyut. The worlds, all of existence, are revealed, are exposed, are created, so to speak, are founded upon a falling from godliness to worldliness. So now we can already, before we understand that sentence, we can understand how, at least, whatever that means, from godliness to worldliness, a falling. And then we understand now that the world is now returning to its original state, from godliness to worldliness, to the limitations, to the finite, to the borders. And now, it doesn't just start here and go up. We say, how does that not? Tshuva, that's rising. But now we find, no, there's an original state. There's this preceding state of godliness. We'll maybe elaborate. Zat Hashem. And the world falls. Every act of creation is a falling down to existence, to border, to limitations, to finite. And now all of the tshuva is this built-in force that it's not like the world is doomed to suffer and be in this fractured world of suffering and evil and death. And now this, so to speak, it comes from this divine, no, not divine. Divine is beyond the infinite, whatever, but it comes down. And then tshuva is this force that is constantly pushing the world back. What he says before, everything returns to Elokut. to understand that a little bit, we have another sheet. Lo and behold. The Gemara in Shabbat says, Ishlokish quotes, saying that it says, Vayerev vayiboker yom hashishi, right? The sixth day of creation. It was night, it was day, the yom hashishi. The other days it says yom rishon, the first day, the second day. Here the Hebrew is different. Here it says the sixth. The other ones say the number, the day, the cardinal, whatever, the first, second, third, and here it says the sixth, hashishi. The Gemara asks Rabbi Yeshua, why? What is this extra hey? The how do you say the article? The sixth. That God made a condition with creation. That all of creation was dependent on the receiving of Torah on the sixth day of Sivan. Right, we received the Torah. That Israel, the world existence depends on the acceptance of the Torah. In other words, we'll see why that maybe the next source, that the Yalkut Shimoni, just to make things quicker, the end is that it's like a blueprint. Like an architect has a plan, blueprints, he makes a plan, he has an idea, and he has the plans to build the house. And so too, God, the last line that's underlined, Mibit Torah Borei Ha'olam. It's a famous quote, mentioned a few places in the Chazal, our sages, looked into the Torah and created the world. In other words, the Torah, as if it's this blueprint, is the goal. Is the goal of creation, the purpose for which all is created. Without that, without accepting that, without having that revealed in this world, there's no purpose for creation. There's no existence to creation. There's no, I'll return everything to tohu vavohu, to emptiness. In other words, the whole purpose of creation, where there's an ideal, there's a goal, the world, where the world is coming from, so to speak, and everything is from there and leading up to the fulfillment of that goal. That's the Torah, this divine, infinite, divine ideal for all of existence that preceded the world, as the blueprint of the world, before the world. So we see here are two stages. There's the goal, and then there's the fulfillment of that goal. Right? There's the goal, there's the blueprint, and then there's the building of that house or whatever the architect had in mind. The divine plan and the goal. The question is, like I wrote on the side there, is the world immediately according to that plan, to that ideal? Does the world automatically fulfill? Like, is creation already the fulfillment of that divine ideal, that infinite goal? So the rabbis say many things that show us that it's not so, that there's a falling, there's a distance, a gap between the ideal and the real, temporarily. First Rashi I brought here from the first Rashi of the first chapter in the first sentence on the Torah. It says, Bara Elokim, the name of Elokim. Until man is created, that the name of God is called Elokim. Each name has a certain attribute, a certain way that God reveals himself, how he uses to be revealed and exposed, how he acts in this world. It's only one God, but there's different names. He has I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a grandfather, I have different, how I act, how I relate, and so God has a different name, so to speak, and this is the Elokim. The Rashi says, it points out from our sages, that God wanted to create the world in the Midat Adin, of strict, absolute, the way it should be, what I want, what it should be, and it is. And he saw that the world can't exist. V'igdim, this is all Rashi, right? Midim, Midat Rachamim, right? The measure of mercy, of mercy. And he joined it with the Midat Adin. In other words, the world can't exist, and it's all actually, everything has to be, if someone does something wrong, that's it, end, it's finished. The world won't be able to stand up to that. So there's an additional, so to speak, not compensation, a hitchashvut, a consideration of the weakness of man, the frailty of his free will that he has, that God created that way. So this is part of creation. That's a mistake, that God didn't want to do it. He purposely did it this way, that there will be this need for the mercy, to give time for a person to come back and fix his ways, to enable. Not everything is exactly the way, perfect right away, but ultimately to get to it, to achieve that. The second, number 4, also from Breshit chapter 1, verse 11, It says in the Torah that God created. It says, "Sent you should create." I'll read you the verse. No, this is a Siddur. So, like I said, in verse 1, chapter 1, verse 11, it says in English. God said, "Let the earth sprout vegetation, herbage yielding seed, fruit trees yielding fruit." And it was so. And the earth brought forth vegetation, herbage yielding seed, and trees yielding fruit. The original verse was, God said, "Let there be a fruit tree," which Rashi points out. The Chazal say, if you can read the Rashi there, "Sheyeh tama etz ketama pri." It was supposed to be that the fruit, the taste of the tree, was the taste of the fruit. That there was no distinction. Rav Kook elaborates it in Orot Tshuva how there's the means and the end. Usually the means are on the way, and the end is the fruit, the ultimate conclusion. But there's a big gap between the two. There's some people even just how the difference between maybe if you want to get to Tel Aviv, you have to go on a long trip and you have to wait an hour for 2 hours. You go on the train, half an hour, but you have to get your destination is the thing. If you could eliminate the trip, the quicker the better. That's not part of the. If you be, I say, the quicker the better to get to the destination. That's the goal. On the way is meaningless. But on the tiyul, you go on a trip. How do you say hike? Tiyul. The going on the way is the same as the destination. Is the goal itself. To enjoy the trip, enjoy what you're doing, not to skip it. That's the trip is the goal. The goal is part of the ends and the means are the same. The taste of the tree was the taste of the fruit. It already had the taste of the ultimate goal on the way. That's what it was supposed to be. Eitz pri. V'hilo astake. The earth did not do so, but rather took out an eitz osepri, a tree that makes fruits, that gives fruits. The tree is not. It's just the means. It's like you have the phone book and just throw it away. Once you get the number, you don't need it anymore. It's just to get. But here it was supposed to be that the means itself has a value. The road is meaningful. All of life is full of meaning and purpose. It's not just to get somewhere, to get to. But it didn't do so. The world in its creation, there was a falling of now the tree that makes fruits, but not that it's a tree fruit. Because he says because. So again, we see, and there's other sources I brought down, or that are brought down here, that the original light of creation was hidden for the future, for the righteous in the future. There was a certain light. There was a perspective, an ability to see things, and not just physically to understand things at a level that we don't have. It was supposed to be. It was closed, so to speak. So, just simply put, the world and order of creation is, let's say, the very act of creation. We call this creation. Is a falling. Let's say there's this gap, there's this filter, there's this block. Let's call it this infinite light, this infinite good, this goodness of borderless. We can't even think of that. It's good. We live in a world of borders. There's space, there's time, there's dimensions. It's hard to understand something beyond the borders and without borders. But the goal is this limitless good. That's what God wishes to bestow. But the vehicle is not able to hold that. It's limited. So there's what's called, the rabbis call the breaking of the vessels to order. But there's a lot more to talk about how the creation. But nevertheless, there's this falling. There's this. Let's say now there's a filter. There's this gap between what is revealed, the real, and the ideal. That's why it's called olam. Olam is from the root he'elim, right? Hidden. The world conceals. The world blocks. In other words, there's a atmosphere that blocks all the light, like even the sunlight we don't have. There's a block, the very gap between creator and the created. This is a falling. This is what he said before, that everything is built on this foundation that is revealed as falling from godliness to worldliness, to border, to limited, now finite and death, all the world that we have today, multiplicity and variety. But now there's limits. This is up to here. There's border. So that's the world we live in. Tshuva is this force that we said before, that there's also the other gaps. The very fact of creation, now the midat rachamim, this mercy had to be added to consideration, and the tree didn't become what it's supposed to be. It will be. But that's the force of tshuva, to return all the world to that original status. That is tshuva. That's what he said. The world is started from before creation. There's this purpose, not a mistake. God couldn't do the world he wanted to do. He couldn't make it that the tree would be ate tree right from the beginning. We'll see the last source on the sheet, but it was purposely developed in this way of falling in order to rise. The big books of the Ramchal talk about that a lot. The Ramchal, Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, in his book, you have it in English here, The Knowing Heart, and also Derech Hashem, the way of God. He starts out that God wishes to bestow, simply put, it's not always simple, you can say it simply, but it's that God wishes to bestow infinite good. But the receptacle can't receive that. The good that you make on your own is that you had free will, that you had the option to do otherwise, and you overcame it, and you did what was proper, overcame the difficulties and challenges. That which you bought on your own, so to speak, that is it's a bigger good. To get the real good, I can give you a present. Something gift, you didn't deserve it, you didn't earn it, you didn't work for it, I'm giving it to you. Easy come, easy go. The rabbis call that Nahama de Kisufa, the bread of embarrassment. The poor person can't look into the face of he that gives him this free bread. He's embarrassed. It's not his, it's external. You go to the internet and you get AliExpress, you order a sign that says Professor Moshe Kaplan, whatever, a PhD, and you can buy a thing, but it's not you. A normal person would be embarrassed. It's not me, it's not really real. I didn't acquire it, didn't work for it. That which you don't buy isn't yours. It's not good. The ultimate good is that which you earned, so to speak. You deserved, you worked for, and then you achieve that level. That's a bigger good. God wishes to bestow the bigger, complete good. You can look in the Ramchal there at the beginning of those books at length, and it's, again, one of the deeper concepts. It sounds so simple, but like you go into a gym, you go into a gym, you say, I want to work out, I want to get stronger. Maybe I pick up 1 kilo and I leave. I said, that was nice. Is that what you do? When you go into a gym, pick up 1 kilo? No, what do you do?
Progressing.
Each time more, harder, more difficult, and more, the dealing with obstacles, challenges, and overcoming them makes you even stronger than you were before. It's purposely built that way, that God made that, again, the achieving of good that you work for. So he created this world of free will. He created it as good and evil. And you have 2 roads. If you have no 2 roads, you have no difficulty, then again, you pick up the thing. It's yours. You get the good, but it's not a good. It's not a good good. It's a weak good. I don't know, a guy goes into, maybe, how do you say, kaduregel, soccer field, and for the big competition, who's the final challenge, whatever, and the other team doesn't show up. And he's, crowned he's the champion. He wins by default. But it doesn't show how good he is, how strong he is, what a champion he is. It's a champion, he didn't have any opponent. Someone that had the super opponent, the best team in the world was against him. An equal and opposite force, and he overcame, and he was stronger. That's worthy of the name champion. So too, the man he created a world purposely with, so to speak, an other choice. And still, when man ultimately chooses and overcomes and chooses what is proper, it's a different level of good. That's a real champion. So anyway, that's...
Is it similar to Yaakov fighting the angel of Asaph, and he's got Israel as a result?
Okay. The Sarita in Kale, okay? That's why you're Shar Kale, straight to God. Sarita, you went against others. It's but again, I just wanted to say that it's not a mistake that God couldn't make a world that he wanted to do. It's falling thing. What, he couldn't make the trees like... No, it's a purposeful thing in order that the world should develop to a higher level than it would have achieved just given. But nevertheless, that's this first level of thing. And the tshuva is this force from the beginning that he put in, that don't think the world fell and that's it. That's the end of creation. God left at the world, plopped it down. You have free will. What if man doesn't do tshuva? How are we going to return? How do we... But it's a built-in force that pushes. I call it spiritual gravity, whatever. It's called tshuva. But that's only one level. Then comes Adam HaRishon, And he not only didn't, he was supposed to push the world, return the world back to what it was supposed to be. For that he was created and given the powers to do and to raise the world to its ultimate perfection, even higher than it was in Gan Eden that he was supposed to, where he started. But instead of doing that, he put in another block. A sin, a chet, from the word Hebrew, lachti tamatara, to miss the target. A sin isn't just, oh, you do something evil, some arbitrary God said, don't do this, and you did it. But it's a block. It literally blocks this light. Those are the things that God determined and said to you. These are things that block this light, that prevent the fulfillment, the expression of that light in this world. And our goal is to reveal that light, to make this world what it's supposed to be, what it really is, the full illumination, not of hidden, but to reveal that hidden. So man comes, Adam Rishon, not man, us. The first man, Adam Rishon, sinned, and now the world is over here. This is our starting point. When we're born, every child that is born is over here. And then we come along, and unfortunately sometimes we add our own 2 cents. We add another block and filters and barriers, and the world is even further, more distance from that divine, from that light, from that goal. And that's what the usual books of Tshuva talk about, this cycle of Tshuva. You sinned, go back to where you were, right? Go back to where you started. You were born good and perfect and nice and whatever. And then that's what we said before. That's the usual thing of Tshuva. After sin, you do Tshuva. But we said there's a Tshuva that even if you don't sin, or even after you fixed your sin, you're over here again. You went back. You're normal. You're healthy. No blocks. You didn't add any blocks. You took away your blocks. But we said there's so much more to do. The world has to go way, way back up. There's tshuva for all of the world, all of mankind, all of existence. When you do tshuva individually, on whatever level, your individual level, or that you fix you're in flow with, you're in harmony with all of creation. You're participating in something so great. It's not just my thing and I get a world to come. I get rid of my sins, and I'm now promised my place in the world to come. It's all circled around my private, egoistic, central thing about what's in it for me. Judaism, I'll do tshuva because I understood that if I don't do good, if I don't go back, I'll be punished. So I'll do tshuva. But tshuva, we said, even if you don't sin, even if this is something so amazing, some universal, you're participating in something so grand of fixing the world, fixing all of creation, elevating all of existence, returning the world, literally returning to its original status. Maybe since I did mention it, I'll just read the last source on the sheet, which is also from the Ramchal, but one of his, maybe you call it the deeper books, or the Kabbalistic books more of the Ramchal, called the Klach Pitchei Chochmah, 138 openings of wisdom. Opening number 131, Kuf Lamed Aleph. He says, the worlds were created in a way that they could rise up from their level. For that, they were lowered in the beginning, in order that they should rise up slowly, until they all go back to their original status. In other words, the world was purposely lowered. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a limitation. God, He purposely made an amazing world that enables this function of rising to endless elevation. That you make yourself. Existentialist, that you make, and that's a bigger good that you can achieve. And you not only, it's like a spring that is lowered, doesn't just go back to where it was, right? If you, like a bow and arrow, you don't just pull back the bow and it goes back to where it was. The idea is that it has now the potential energy, whatever. Now it goes even further than the bow, right? The arrow goes farther. You come out stronger than you were before. Like we said, from the gym, you don't just come back where you were, but you get in. You pick up something and you come back. You did exactly what you're used to every week, but you get stronger and better. In other words, this pull, this going down and going up, isn't just that you went down and now it's yours, that you bought it on your own. You just go back to where we were. No, you go back to the ability to receive this infinite good. Because ultimately we're finite. We don't become God. That's not a possibility. But how do we become like God is that we chose out of free will, just like God is. We are able to receive this infinite good. Maybe I'll give a metaphor. I think Reuven Sasson once explained this concept of the breaking of the vessels in the beginning. This light, this unbelievable light that God wanted to give, the vessels were not able to hold that light, so they broke down. But now when they rebuild themselves, they can now receive this bigger light. How can they? Again, we remain finite. We're creations. We're still not God. He says, I should maybe explain these things, but I guess a quick metaphor. If at the beginning they're supposed to be receiving this good, this light, and in order to pass it on, to give this to be God, like it's God says, and again, Ashrei, we say, Tov Hashem lakol v'rachamav al kol ma'asav. God is good to all. He wants to bestow this good. Can't understand whatever God created the world in order to bestow, to give, not just to, in order to give and to make creation and make good and make those that receive a beneficiary is infinite goodness to reveal by infinite creatures. So you're supposed to, again, our goal is to participate in that and bring that good to continue it. If someone is egoistic, is probably just worried about himself, it's like a tzinor with a bottom with it, like a cup. It's limited. It has a certain amount of good it can receive, a certain amount of light that it was supposed to pass on, but it said, no, I'm just worried, I want it for myself. So these original vessels took it for themselves, and there was a bottom of it, like at the end, there was a certain amount of good, and it was too good and exploded. But if there's a tzinor with no bottom, a bottomless pit, how much good can that receive? How much light can that, tzinor, pipe receive? Infinite light. It just keeps. There's more like it. It doesn't just fill up and that's it and it explodes. It becomes a tzinor, a pipe. The tzinor is the letters of Ratzon, back right. The Ratzon, the will of God that flows through it, is infinite. Nevertheless, the point is that this whole system, like the Ramchal says and others, that it doesn't just go back to where it was. Also the Rambam in More Nevuchim, that Tshuva enables you to return to a higher level than you don't just go back to where you were. The question is. So that's why tshuva is indeed a returning, not just returning you to where you were before you were a good guy, you sinned and now go back to being a good guy. It's not a one-time thing. It's not just for man. It's the whole world, is this whole process of existence, like he says here, that all of creation is founded on this principle of tshuva, of returning. All of creation was in order to go down and purposely, in order to come back and rebuild itself. That man usually at Am Yisrael has the central function to do that, to return the world to its ultimate grandeur and greatness. That.
Would you say it's to return to authentically who you are?
Yes. Yeah. But that's stage one. The truth is. But yes, the first thing is, Rav Kook says, is to return to yourself. The problem is people forgot themselves, don't know who they really are. So the first thing is return to yourself. And yourself is what? Is that, I don't want to call it a chunk of godliness, of a chunk of a piece of godness in the world. Yes, returning to yourself ultimately brings you to understand and to be connected to that source of you, who you really are. So the first thing is indeed to return to yourself. Tshuva isn't to somebody become something other than you. I want it to have fun, whatever, go out and do.
Because the authentic self wouldn't sin. So it's like, it doesn't want to do anything that's against God. So it's not attached to any false.
But usually, tshuva is seen as something external. I want to do X, and God says, no, you have to do this, something else. You have to leave what you want. You have to, other religions, even Islam is called, in Hebrew, the translation of Islam is submission. You have to submit, you have to suppress Christianity, suppress life. There's life and there's religion. You have to minimize your living. If you could live in a monastery, vows of celibacy, don't get married, sex is a sin, that can't be fixed. All you can do is leave that and become as if holiness. There's holiness and there's life. There's you, life, vitality, and God's will, God forbid. That's how it's seen, understood, unfortunately, even in some Jews that have this misconception based on our exile, existence, etc., which we'll talk about also.
The tikkun is to return to how the world was before Adam did the het.
Right.
Is that the idea for the tikkun? Yes.
Right. That's what I mentioned here. I tried to draw that picture, so to speak. Here we sin from our sins, but even without that or after that, from Adam Rishon to where he was, and then our goal is to return what he was supposed to do before the sin.
Right.
The world had a falling. Had a falling before that. How? The very act of creation is a certain level we have to describe. We mentioned a little bit, but there's a minimization, there's a falling, there's a descent of creation. And our goal is to fix and return. That's not meant to be, and that won't be. Because the world will return to that ideal, because that's the whole foundation of existence. It's not like it's a theoretical thing that we were there. No, the world starts there, was there. It's just a matter of returning. Like it says in the Gemara that a baby in the womb of his mother is taught all the Torah. Right? You've heard that, the Gemara Nida. And then what happens to him? When
Angel smacks the lip.
Right, the angel comes out. Whatever, when he comes out, the womb, and he comes out and forgets, how do you say, makes him forget all the Torah. So the rabbi, so what's the point of teaching him? What do you teach him? He's going to forget it all. So don't teach him. He's starting with zero anyway. So what's the advantage of the pre-learning before? If it's erased anyway.
It's all review.
Yeah, bidiyuk. It's not erased. It's like also, I don't know, the old days when there was DOS, I don't know if anyone remembers.
Reveal it.
To relearn, to restudy, to read. It's, remember, I don't know if you know, remember delete? There was a delete, DOS. Right, and there was undelete. Remember that? I don't know if anyone knows how to, used to be DOS, you had to write delete, but there was an undelete. You already deleted the file. What, you laugh, you remember that thing? No?
Undo?
No, there was delete. There was a function called delete. Now you just push the button. Those days there was DOS, there was, anyway, 3.1. You know, computers, no.
DOS.
So there's undelete. How did it work undelete? It's gone. No, because there was the name of the file name, and it erased the first letter of the file name. It was still there, but it wasn't visible. It wasn't the FAT, whatever, the thing that knows where to locate the files. It's the first letter was gone and didn't find it. But undelete had the function of returning that first thing, and then it's all there. It was still there. In other words, in a deeper sense, the child that forgets there's still this roshim, this image, this impression that remains, and what he does later is just returning and relearning of what it was. But the advantage is, Rav Kook explains, that the simaon, the thirst and the aspiration to return is because man intrinsically has that inner awareness, that subconscious, superconscious awareness that this isn't the world the way it is. It's not supposed to stay this way. Because we were here, we fell, and it's built in this mechanism of undelete. In other words, to return, the aspiration, the inner certainty, to return, to fix, to make the world better. So some people think to make the world better, have this inspiration, have this aspiration. So some people think the better, the physical, to add more food, to make a bigger car, to a bigger house, a villa. But it still emanates. It's a wrong, the application of this true inner desire to better myself, to better the world, to better the body, to better the creation. That desire to better, that's what's called tshuva. This force that's built in not only man, all of creation, of this pushing, Rav Kook defines it, so we don't have time, of chapter 6, I believe, the beginning of chapter 6. Wow. It's a long period. Hatshuva ba mishifat hametziut kula liot yoter tova mezukeket. Very simple. Tshuva comes from the aspiration of reality, of all of existence, to be better, to be more purified and elevated and stronger and whatever. There's something built into society, in the world, in creation. This force, this force in the world that is pushing the world, the aspiration to be better, not to be satisfied with what is. And also in man. Man has that desire to live. Why? Why do you want to live? What? Just to be yes, there's a desire to continue existence, to better, to make the world, because I feel there is more. Why aren't you satisfied with staying put? No, because the world, we said, is not stagnant, is not static. The world and mankind, especially free will, has the ability and desire, because we were there, it's a built-in this impression that remains with us, and there's a lot to talk about, metaphors for that, but maybe next time, how this being there and coming down, it's not just that it was erased. It still has that memory. Therefore, there's a desire and push and the need and the certainty and the joy of participating and bringing the world back to bettering our lives and all of existence. All the isms of the world, man wants to make better. Communism, socialism, the isms and man has the aspirations to fix. That's his form of tshuva. Again, how he expresses it, how he finds the address to realize that, is something else. Each one finds that he's a very materialistic person, so he's better, like I said, more money, more honor, more...
could you say that since the Chet, the world fell into duality, or it fell into good and evil mixed together?
Okay.
So our role is to make a...
More than duality, totally, multiplicity, but yes.
Multiplicity, correct, because it all comes
There's good and evil, simply put. Right.
Yeah,
yes.
good and evil comes from...
And the whole world is purposely, if I would draw this image of...
Like a funnel.
But the goal is like we have, let's say it started with this infinite, goes to what you said, there's multiplicity, variety, diversity. We see the world, this is the world. But ultimately, we'll return to this oneness. But the oneness is not just that getting back to Ephes, like the whole thing was the detour just to get back 6,000 years, just to get back where we started. No, it's even higher. Like I said before, the champion of having had all that multiplicity and revealing the one, the connection, the harmony of all, the divine in all of that it's not just where we were before, had we just started with in the starting point, so to speak. We started with this, and the goal after meeting all these challenges and meeting all this diversity, thinking maybe that's the reality, and rediscovering and finding the oneness of it all, connecting it all, the harmony of all, is like this orchestra with all the different instruments is greater than one instrument. One instrument, you see, it's all perfect. There's no, cacophony. It's all one sound. But the goal is having this multiplicity, thousands of instruments, drums, violins, and all of them now working together in harmony. That is a greater oneness than the previous. And when we retain a higher ideal, this oneness at the end is not the way it was before. And that's what tshuva is, this force that reunites, brings the harmony, and all that we're doing and all that we're commanded to do and supposed to do and happy to do, and again, it brings the joy, which is, I'll just end up with this week's parashah.
It's greater because there's a nisayon.
Okay.
As opposed to pre-creation, there was no nisayon, there was no.
Right, that's what I said. There's no free will. If there's there's no choice. There's no opposing team. Then you're a champion. Like in Russia, I don't know. There's one guy in the ballot and he wins. It's not a victory. It doesn't. But the greatness of the good of God, the goodness of man, of his morality, is having the choice, having the option, having two roads, having multiple roads, and choosing the right thing. That is a greater thing. Like you said, the nisayon. Not just a test. I want to see you, but that makes him. It brings out the ultimate good better than it was, like you said before, a given. But I just want to end up that this understanding, why is this important to know this bigger picture of tshuva, universal tshuva? I just have to fix no, we'll see, again, but just quickly to not leave it for next week, because it's week's parashah. All the curses in this week's parashah, it says at the end of the curses, that because you worshipped me, or because you didn't worship me with simcha, with joy. You did the mitzvot, but not out of joy. What's the difference in the motivation? It's a whole different world. All these negative things come because if Judaism is seen as something you have to do, or else, like I said, I have to do this because I don't want to lose my place in the world to come, and it's all egoistic, private thing. What's in it for me? It's all that focus of tshuva is limited to now the private, and your whole service of God is this coercive. Like I said, leaving my life. I have to be something else. Like a body doesn't like transplants, right? It rejects something it's external. But if you understand, like you said, tshuva is coming back to yourself, your true self, your super self, your real gigantic self. The joy that comes with that, a lot to talk about. But so this understanding enables us to return to, first of all, the certainty of tshuva, the certainty of the perfection of the world. It's not just optimistic, it's the realistic that the world is returning and the constant state of returning towards that. And you're participating in that, the joy, the simcha that comes with that. I'm doing something so important, not just going to some demonstration to change the world, to elevate, to bring back the true meaning of the beauty of the world. So that enables you to get to this level of tshuva from ahava, out of love, out of serving God, out of joy, out of simcha, and not out of rote and have no choice and I just do it or else. But there's more to talk about. But this week's parashah, at the end of all the Christians, because there's not this negative, or this limited motivation of not out of the joy. And how does the joy come? And we'll see the Rambam, out of the understanding of the greatness of what you're doing, what you're participating in. And again, it's not something external. It's you, it's the real you. And that when someone does what he's doing, with something healthy and normal, that it's me, that brings joy. That's what makes you happy. To do something not me is painful, as I have to succumb and minimize my life and myself. But if you understand and you get to the level of understanding and appreciate it, this is you, then it's the most enjoying, joyful simcha that comes with that. So that was just B'ezrat Hashem, we'll have much more to see. B'ezrat Hashem.